Super excited. You're on Christians Who Drink Whiskey. They're minded friends. My friend Jimmy Duke and I are just drinking water today. Jimmy Duke is here. I'm super excited. And
we're not drinking whiskey because it's like 11 a.m. in the morning.
That has not stopped me on the show before. I think the earliest whiskey call we've done is like 10 a.m. And it's like your day is like
5 o'clock someplace.
5 o'clock someplace. But yeah, I was telling someone the other day, like I didn't know I came to LA for a shoot, and I was like extended my journey and said let's do some podcasts with some people like Jimmy and other people, and scheduled it tight like as you do when you come to LA. And day 2, I'm like, wow, this podcast is bad for my liver.
Yes, this is not a podcast. This is an intervention. Your family has sent me. You're an alcoholic. You need help. Bring in the doctor.
I'm not actually. Like, chocolate is the addiction.
Chocolate.
Yeah, and I've been clean and sober of Oreos for about 3 or 4 years now.
Oh, well done.
But my wife discovered a couple loopholes for me, like the vanilla Oreos. Which not as you don't have the same. It doesn't have the same cocaine in it.
Now, can you? Technically, if you just ate the white stuff, is that an Oreo?
So
Are you eating Oreo?
Oh, it's just cream. The cream is fine. That's fine.
When I was a kid, I used to think it was lard.
It probably was.
When we were kids, I think it was actually lard.
The other loophole we discovered. So right after I gave up chocolate, because I really had an addiction. I would there.
You were actually addicted to chocolate.
There was a Christmas where my friend was coming to my house and we were going to drive to this retreat, and I ate so much chocolate in the 3 days I've been home around Christmas time that there was a biological stoppage that took place. and I started.
Gotta edit that, right?
I started. No, this is like you know because there may be other chocolate addicts out there who've had the same
stoppage.
I went to the bathroom an hour and a half before she got there, and didn't come out until half hour she actually got there. And these are the signs that should have been an early diagnosis of my addiction,
And by the way, this is a good sign. It's a good start to this podcast. We're talking about going to the bathroom. I'm ready. This is
Jimmy was making diarrhea jokes before we did the COVID screening, and he was like, no loss of taste, but I might need to interrupt this. So the other loophole my wife discovered right after I gave up chocolate. I gave up chocolate as a fast. I'm fasting chocolate until I produce my first feature film. Or get hired in a direct one. But so that could be 13 years. It could be a year and a half. It could be it could never happen.
Yeah.
So we went to Peru, and my wife loves chocolate. My kids love chocolate. Mm-hmm. Like we go to this chocolate museum.
Oh dear.
And the person who's telling us about the cocoa, or whatever, she was like, well, there's the white stuff, and they make white chocolate out of it. But white chocolate is not chocolate.
Right, I have heard that.
And my wife goes, there's no loophole for it. So my wife she's an enabler.
Yeah, she is. She's your pusher.
She's a wonderful enabler.
She takes you to the Peruvian chocolate factory. Like, let me introduce you to Willy Wonka. But
she did
but don't touch.
She did allow me. She's like, you can stay back in the Airbnb, but with the kids and I go to the chocolate factory. They gotta know how the cocaine's made.
What do you do on Halloween night? Do you literally lock yourself in a room and turn all the lights off, or?
So it's interesting. Like there's a couple things when you give up chocolate. You realize, number one, that when you go to restaurants, there's one or sometimes no dessert that you can have that has chocolate in it. Yeah. When I gave up chocolate, in 2 weeks I lost 10 pounds.
Wow.
Just from getting chocolate out of my diet.
That's a lot of chocolate, Kevin. Good Lord.
Say
you're not a big man. That's I am fortunate that I was a teetotaler my whole life until I got married with alcohol, and I'm grateful for that because I have an addictive personality.
How do you define teetotaler?
I didn't drink anything.
Okay.
I didn't touch the stuff.
So you grew up Baptist or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I no smoking, no drinking, and I didn't start drinking until I got married because my wife was a casual drinker. She drank wine. She drinks beer too, but she likes to have a glass of red wine. And so I didn't start drinking and I got married later. So I was 29 when I got married. So I went through almost the first 30 years of my life, which I'm glad I went through at least the first 18.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. It was like, it'd be terrible if I said I drank before that. No, but yeah, I didn't really drink at all.
Yeah.
I had a sip here, or, to try something, but seriously, had never drank anything. And then my wife, even when we were dating, I didn't really drink. And it was about 6 months into our marriage. I was like, okay, let me try a little here. And so to this day, I don't like wine.
Yeah.
I do like a really nice ice cold beer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've recently become more of a fan of some of the hard liquors. My friend introduced me to a Moscow Mule.
Oh, yeah.
Which I really enjoy because it's so sweet.
Yes.
So basically, any cold drink. So that's why I don't like red wine.
Yeah.
Because it's room temperature, and I hate drinking anything. I hate drinking water room temperature.
Yeah.
I hate.
So the beer in London, you're not a big fan of?
No, I won't drink. I got one at a ball game one time. It was like too warm. This is terrible. I needed ice cold.
Yeah.
And so frosty mug and everything.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting because the same way I didn't have my first drink of beer until I graduated college, and I was like, why do people like this? But after a while you get used to the taste. And I think if you're not maybe if I had waited till longer in life to eat chocolate, maybe I'd have more self-restraint or something like that.
But no, I'm a lightweight. I mean, you would think a guy my size would be able to, but I'm down.
Yeah.
One Manhattan, and I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, hey everybody.
Just one Manhattan that's this big.
Yeah, no, but I seriously, I've started to enjoy whiskey a little bit on, just a smoother whiskey.
Yeah.
And on ice, or on the rocks, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And but I can't only do just do one, and I'm very.
It's funny, people. I started the show, and everyone assumes that I'm like a huge whiskey drinker, and I'm more of.
It's in the name. Gee, I wonder why.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm more of a. But the name is like I was telling.
Because it would sound stupid if it was Christians in vermouth.
I said the other day I was like a Cosmos, Christians drink Cosmos. That's a different vibe, man. You're not expecting to see me.
Very different show.
That's if I was to pick like the drink I was going to drink every time I have one of these shows, it would be called Christians that drink Cosmos.
Christians that drink appletini.
Yeah, that's a little bit too for you. But yeah, so my wife and I would go out on a date or something like that, and sure enough, the server will bring out our beverages, and he'll place the beer in front of me, and whatever it is, the margarita, the first margarita, whatever, and they'll be like, it's the other way around. She gets the beer, I get the girly drink.
It's funny. Because I was never really had it early on, I'm grateful because as I've gotten older, I've discovered that I have an addictive personality. And I truly believe that if I had discovered alcohol at an earlier age, if it weren't forbidden for me, and then just culturally I wasn't interested, I could have drank in college, I just didn't because I was like, I don't want to touch the stuff. But if I had, I think it would have been a problem for me.
Yeah.
I really do. I think I would have had a problem. And so I kind of look back at those things, and I'm grateful for that.
Likewise, I am blessed. Thank you, Linda and David Hagenberg. Despite what you think of my podcast now, no.
It's true. He's as bad as you. No, I'm just kidding.
No, awesome. So, we're
Hi, Kevin.
we're getting the introductions like
You guys,
10
this
minutes
is
in.
Kevin. I'm so glad to see him. This is actually the very first time Kevin and I have been in person together because we spent the entire summer together, but because of COVID, we were in little boxes on a screen.
Yeah.
And so it's so good to see you.
It's great to be here in person, and thank you for coming in person.
We're socially distancing.
Yeah, it seems this is actually like we did a lot of visual effects. We're not being shot at the same time. The timing of these conversations. What I wanted to say, just introduction. So I met you. I signed up for this. I signed up like the last minute.
You did.
For this program called Act One, producing executive training program. I guess I probably messed up the title, but it's a great program for Christians who want to get into Hollywood as producers. There's also a writing side of things, and it was a great 12 weeks. 10 weeks, 9.5. But who's counting? I think this is like you're fulfilling the commitment.
That's it.
After this, I'll never hear from you again. But it was great. At Act One, we got great introductions to people that are already on the podcast, like Vince Michelli and Spencer Fulmar, but as well as like some heavy hitters in LA, Dan Lin, blanking on other person's name.
You guys heard from Ralph Winter.
Ralph Winter,
You guys heard Sam Curfew. You guys heard from Dallas Jenkins.
Dallas Jenkins, yeah. And I think that it was just a great program. Learned a ton. Learned a ton, yeah.
It was great to have you in the program.
Yeah. Tell us, but you also produce. You've made a couple, the Ragamuffin movie, as well as some other things, many things in development. So how did you end up, on that, at Act One, and what else are you involved with?
So Act One was founded in 1999, and I was there when it began. So Act One was birthed out of another ministry, which is now no more. It was called Intermission. And at the time, I worked for the gentleman who ran that ministry called Intermission. David Shaw he co-founded several ministries to Christians in the entertainment industry. And he worked for the First Presbyterian Church of Hollywood, which is just right up the street. And he co-founded the Actors Co-op Theater, which is an Actors Equity 99-seat theater, very highly regarded in the LA theater world, award-winning. They do real quality, excellent stuff, and they have for decades. He co-founded them. Then he founded Intermission, which Intermission was a network of Christian professionals in the entertainment industry. So they would do 4 or 5 events a year for Christians in Hollywood to come together and have community and networking, and which back then, when he started it in the late 80s, early 90s, that wasn't happening a lot. Believe it or not, when you talk to a lot of the old guard, what you'll find is they didn't know each other. Many Christians working in the entertainment industry didn't know the other ones existed. And so there was a lot of isolation, and there was a lot of loneliness in that kind of sense. And so Intermission really started bringing together a lot of people. And there were a few other ministries that had specific ministries towards Christians in the industry in other ways, but that was the one that kind of brought everyone together.
And you were involved in Intermission?
So I was like his assistant, but I functioned more like as the assistant director to things, and he kind of used me to help run a lot of stuff. And this is when I was really young, so I was 22. And 21, 22. And so in 1999, he brought in Barbara Nicolosi, and they co-founded Act One. Act One was Act One Writing for Hollywood was what it was first called. And it was designed to train Christians to become screenwriters and go into the business working in Hollywood. And the way that was going to work was, because of Intermission, all these working screenwriters have found each other and said, hey, let's invest in the next generation. And so that was, I mean, there were some other pieces involved, but that was essentially it. And so I worked for them the first 2 iterations. So it was summer 99 and then summer 2000. And after summer 2000, David and Barbara offered me that there was at the time they thought about expanding to New York City. At the time there was already an intermission in New York, but it was being run by a volunteer who was stepping down. And then Barbara thought we should start an Act One New York for East Coasters. People could, people on this side of the country could do the, LA program, and people on that side of the country could do that program. And so they offered me the job. I was 23, and they offered me the job to run both programs in New York, which, I got really excited about. And we went up there, met the board up there. I walked the city. And I was like, man, I can do this. I can live in Manhattan. I can, this would be really exciting. And I was praying and felt like God said to me, nope, stay in LA. Which, like, wow, okay. And so I came back and told them, and David was understanding. Barbara was a little less. If you know Barbara, it's okay. It's not unexpected. But
do we edit this out for Barbara?
No. We're good friends. But anyway, so once someone offers you a job that essentially puts you at the same level of them positionally, it then gets kind of weird to continue to work for them as their assistant. And so very shortly after that, I resigned and found another job. I actually went to work for my church at the time, and became a full-time filmmaker, pastor. Started creating films and productions and things like that out of church. And so that was when I was 22, 23, around there.
So you've got a whole collection of.
That was a couple of years ago, is what I'm saying.
Couple years, give or take a month or two.
Yeah.
So there's a collection of Jimmy Duke films that were made of this church. Were they all kind of ministry films, or did you get a chance to explore narrative and all that?
No, we were. So this is Mosaic. Erwin McManus, the pastor. We were in many ways. We were groundbreaking. We were probably, if not the first church, we were one of the first churches to use actual narrative films in the services. So we were creating. So at one point, when I was originally hired in 2001, I think is when I went on staff. That was I was the drama guy. So my job was to have a sketch every single Sunday. So that year I had 52 sketches. It was just like, but they were original. We were writing. So I created a little writer's room. The advantage of doing church in LA is you've got all these industry professionals and people who are aspiring. And so a lot of creative juices. So you're young, a lot of people weren't married yet, didn't have kids. And so you'd stay up late at night rehearsing, and very much that kind of fun.
It's awesome. It was great creative collaboration.
Exactly. Exactly. So that went on for a while, and then they shifted me to basically running all of the, at the time Mosaic was very production heavy, so all of the services, I produced all the services on a weekly basis, and then a couple of years into that, they basically said, do what you want to do. What do you want to do? And I said, well, what I did with the drama team and what they do with the music team, I want to create a film team. Because at the time, we had created some stuff. We would basically put a small team together that would develop a concept and then shoot that concept, and then we'd have it and we'd put it in film festivals and things like that. But it was a lot of work gearing everybody up for that one project, and then let everybody kind of go away, and then 6 or 8 months later gearing everybody up. So I was like, I actually want to keep it going. And so we did. And so there was about a 2-year stretch where we were producing a brand new original short film every Sunday. So
what was the schedule like for that? Was it
it was madness. So I basically created a team.
Yeah.
So I had a team of young filmmakers. We called it the Mosaic Film Team, and there was, depending on the time period, there was anywhere between 7 to 9 people in leadership on that film team that I oversaw, and I essentially would divvy up projects for them, dates that they would then be responsible to go off and develop content. So we would get, say, the sermon topic.
So wasn't you didn't have your own little studio, meaning a schedule, meaning like, hey, we write on Friday, like a 48-hour film type of thing. We write on Friday, we shoot on Saturday, we deliver on.
No, we did it based on a sermon series or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we started creating what we called, once again, like I said, very early on, these were bumpers.
Yeah.
That were short films.
Yeah.
So they were full-length short films. And sometimes they'd be really short.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd be really long. And
yeah.
We did, we did some really ambitious stuff. We did some stuff that was, will never see the light of day because it was truly awful.
Yeah.
And then we did stuff that was actually pretty stinking special that
is some of it still
rare.
Is some of it still out there on the internet?
Yeah, we even so we even
this is prior to YouTube mostly.
This was prior to YouTube. We did. Thanks for making me feel old, Kevin.
No, I was around. I was around for the beginning of the internet.
Is this prior to television? Yeah.
Remember that?
Isn't that funny? But yeah.
Sarah doesn't know that sound is. But
yeah,
that's the internet. That's the internet. That's what the internet is based off of, those sounds. Listen to it.
This is how you know you're old, is when you're prior to everything.
Yeah.
when the lot stuff you've done is prior to Facebook, iPhones. It's like, geez, anyway. We were the first ones to ever get distribution for our short films. So we actually packaged, this was one of the deals that I was able to work on. This is one of my first deals as a producer, was we packaged, Pastor Irwin wrote a book that we took a lot of our films and we packaged together a DVD to sell, and we got it into Walmart and Best Buy, Target.
That's great.
Yeah, it was. We had a partner that helped us with that, and we ended up releasing 2 of those. And yeah, I go back and watch the films on those, and I'm proud of them because I know there were a bunch of really raw, hungry 22, 23, 24-year-olds who were just like let's just try to do stuff.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most important things that I think a creative person needs.
Youth.
That's right, is youth. Yeah. Okay. The second most important thing. No, we need to do stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that you're making a mistake if you're just constantly sitting around talking about what you want to do. And look, I get it. It's like I understand the realities of the economy of things. Things cost money. Things take time. People have full-time jobs. Like, I get all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's what my trainer tells me. You know what all those things are? Excuses.
Yeah.
Eliminate the excuses. What are you going to do? And so for creatives, I get it. All those things. Do it. Just find something to do and do it, because you're not going to grow and develop as an artist, particularly as a filmmaker, unless you are practicing the art of making film, which is a collaborative process where you're working with other people, you're figuring this stuff out. It just makes you a better filmmaker. So our church was incredible for that. It was an incredible freedom to fail. We had incredible freedom to fail, to not be as good as you thought you'd be, and you still did it. And the church funded it. Church paid for this stuff.
That's great.
It was.
It's great. Do you find you've been around ministry for a long time, and Irwin, is a name that fairly famous preacher. Do you feel like that Irwin and some of the other pastors that embraced creative storytelling, embraced filmmakers in their church. You know, is that a unique thing, or what was it at the time, right?
I think it was at the time. I think
What are the challenges there? Because you get
a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of challenges.
Name the top 10. Name the top one. You know, like ego. Is ego one that?
Well, I will say this: among the many challenges, creatives are messy people. They live messy lives, and
don't open that door.
Creatives are messy people that live messy lives, and you might have to spend twice as long helping them with stuff and you would with them if you had a ministry to accountants or something. You know, I just the very nature of an artist is to push boundaries. The very nature of an artist is to explore the fringes, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, we tend to live on the fringes. And when you tend to live on the fringes, you know, you get your hands a little dirtier.
Yeah.
And so it requires a lot, to minister to creatives requires a lot more patience, time, and willingness to go there with them. Because you have to have trust as well, right? There has to be this trust factor between artists and their patrons, or whatever you want to call them, where it's like, will you allow me to try these things? And that's where we saw a lot of churches failed. And the reason why I say because
maybe the pastor got a little bit controlling. He's like, dealing with the artist is challenging.
Yeah, because the truth is, the reason why I say we were probably the first is because anyone else who did it before us or at the same time, they had people that's what they did. They were hired. We had an army of volunteers that did everything. So when I say I was in charge, I was a producer / executive producer. I was a manager.
Yeah.
I organized, but 85% of the literal over hundreds of films and videos that we produced over that 4 or 5 year period were not my idea.
Yeah. The creatives were like, here's a sermon topic, and in the writer's room they would just start going off.
So the ownership was tremendous. And that requires a lot of trust. And that isn't always reciprocated. I mean, so there were lots of problems. And these other churches, they prefer a more buttoned up approach where if we're going to do something, it has to be done in-house by this person so we can control the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so we were way more riskier, messier. We used to call it, the term we used to use was raw beauty. That's the term we used to use, was raw beauty.
Yeah.
And the truth is we weren't always successful, and there were lots of problems that came from that.
Yeah.
But overall, it was tremendously important for those of us who experienced that community. I mean, I'm still friends, living life with people that I was making films with in my 20s, and because we experienced that together and we grew together.
That seems like a very important moment in your journey. But now how do you transition from there? Now you're Act One, but I'm curious. Like, we obviously heard about Act One a lot, being a student of it. But you went into some other films, like the Ragamuffin movie, and like, what now? What's your day? We're all hyphenated, but how much time do you spend with Act One now versus your other hyphens?
Yeah. So my primary responsibility right now.
Who is Jimmy Duke?
My primary responsibility right now is people like you and Sarah. Like, my primary responsibility is investing in new filmmakers. That's what I do. I want to spend time helping you guys in whatever way that I can. Sometimes I can't help, but I've been doing this long enough that I feel like there's always something I can do.
When you look across the Zoom screen, which of the 12 students you like? I can help all of you except you. I have no help for you.
Yeah.
Does that mean?
That was pretty much you, Kevin.
All right, cool.
Did you need to ask? I don't understand. I mean, when you showed up to class, right? When you showed up to class, it was great. I'm just kidding. No.
So you like helping push, encourage people.
Yeah. So I work.
Build new teams.
Not only do I run Act One, but I also work for a ministry called Master Media, and my job in both ministries is to serve filmmakers. So whether they're executives at a studio level who are they're pretty entrenched in their careers and they've reached a certain level of, if you want to call it success or whatever. I'm meeting with them. I'm praying with them. I'm helping them connect with people and helping them have a place where they can reflect their faith in a place where have a relationship with someone they can reflect their faith where they might not feel like they can in a more corporate business setting. And then I'm also fully engaged in investing in new filmmakers. And so Act One is the great balance because I need the more experienced, entrenched executives and filmmakers to be the ones that help pour into people who are trying to get access to the industry and are just looking for that opportunity. And so a lot of what I do is about mentorship and giving people an opportunity to figure it out. And so that's my whole thing, is just like I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I was given room to fail. I think that's what we have to do for one another.
Yeah.
We have to give each other room to fail. And that's what I mean by doing stuff.
Yeah.
I know that people will be okay in this industry when I see them doing stuff without me.
Yeah.
If I'm the one having to, I'll give you like one or two shots. And if I'm the one constantly having to give you an opportunity and I don't see you running with it,
yeah,
I can't give it to you anymore. Because it's like you haven't proven yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
The hustle's not there.
You gotta have the hustle. You have to.
Do you have but you also, we met at the end of the class, we met your pitching partner. Maybe one of them, I don't know. But you're also pitching stuff too. By the way, I didn't know you were part of Master Media. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Love Dan Ruppel and Jonathan out in New York.
Yes.
Yeah. But you're also pitching your own stuff too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities that have come up for my producing partner and I on things that he had been developing, stuff that I had years ago that we thought went nowhere and it would have sat dormant, and then now starting to get more stuff going on. And then I have another friend who has had some success, and I've been trying to help him. So I mean, I'm always.
So that doesn't sound like that's. That sounds like that's kind of like side.
Yeah, I will always produce.
Yeah.
I will always find a way to try to get something made, and I have reached a point in my career now where it's not about me trying to get my projects made. I spend the bulk of that time helping my friends get their stuff made.
Cool.
So I was, just on the phone with someone for an hour the other day and, doing a consult because they didn't know what they were doing. And so I was like, okay, let's start. Step one, here we go. You really should take the Act One program. But since you didn't, all right, let's kind of walk through this a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
No, it was great to, just for a little shout out for sign up, please, because it was great to have that. It was good to have your perspective for 10 weeks, but also have, three new people's perspective. And I think that there's so much to learn.
And to be clear for everyone, please explain. Like, Act One isn't about me.
No.
I'm a curator.
Yes.
That's the best way to describe my role. I look at how to connect people who need to hear from people, and I curate the experience for filmmakers like yourself to learn in a kind of a dynamic way specific topics that will help you guys in your career. Would that be a good way of me saying?
Yeah, and you use that word too. You're in the middle because of the two ministries you're helping with. Master Media, which serves all kinds of people like me as well as executives. you get some access to bring those people to younger producers like myself, like Sarah. The so what you call it? You call it like not a middleman, but you call it the
curator. Or?
Yeah, curator. When you're talking about master media, you had another word for it, but that idea, your curator nature in Act 1. Yeah, you're not. It's not 10 weeks of Jimmy Duke, although that would be a thing.
That'd be terrible. That would be awful. Just ask my wife.
Yeah. Just. There's a joke in there about my wife not wanting to go on vacation for me for more than 10 days. We've now we're at 2 weeks, but we're pushing for 3.
Listen, I've been here for half an hour, and I'm
the one moment I remember we had somebody scheduled on a Saturday. They had to move their date, and I remember it became this impromptu like Q&A. We'd already had a week or 2 or 3 weeks of different speakers, and just your insight of being in LA, having produced stuff that went from Mosaic, but also other movies, and just being around all these people. It was great to kind of for all of us to kind of just kind of Q&A. Now I think you walked a lot of us through the a business process, and I thought that was it was good to have you there as a curator, but as a person we can get a little extra time with. So thank you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I remember that. Yeah, it was a last minute kind of thing, and it was impromptu. But
he came back. He came back, and it was all good. But
I think what.
But I'm saying I remember a lot of different sessions, but that one for me was it unlocked a few things.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I think in the end, I measure what I do against what you guys do. So that's why I'm such an advocate for you and for Sarah. I advocate for you guys because that's my measurement for if I'm any good at this. So if I can get you, and I've been very blessed. I take, I don't bring this up a lot, but it's happened so much recently that it's really kind of helped me shape things. I've had so many people come to me who tell me that they got their start because of me. And I'm like, I didn't even know. I was like, what are you talking? I have a really bad memory, first of all. So half time I don't remember who these people are. No, I'm joking about that. But I seriously, I don't remember. I seriously don't remember hiring them. I don't remember. But I just get a random email or be in a phone call or with people, and all of a sudden they'll go, well, you did that for me, right? And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And what I've discovered now is there's quite a few people that are working in this business, and they attribute their career getting their start with me.
Yeah.
And
how does it feel? It
feels fantastic. And that's what I'm saying. I've been really guarded from that because I go, I don't want to, come across as some sort of arrogant. But because it has kept happening, I've realized that what God said is, perhaps if you actually stepped into this and embraced that role, perhaps even more will happen instead of you being so apologetic about it. And so that's really what I love doing.
And that's why you're bragging about it now.
That's why I'm bragging about it now.
Hey, Carly, do you need to come through now? Okay, edit that. That's great. That's awesome. I've had that experience too with a few young people, getting into, becoming cinematographers and that's been wonderful. It's cool to hear that. It's cool to hear that you and I'm like, I hope you learned the good stuff and not the
bad habits. They're gonna learn about the bad stuff from me. Yeah, and people did that for me. So either consciously or unconsciously, people were investing in me. They were mentoring me, either directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
And I grew and learned so much from them that I think it's important to do the same when possible.
Yeah.
And I'm not in any way, shape, or form the end all be all of anything. But sometimes, Kevin, all you need is
love.
one person.
Oh, one person.
All right, love's good to do too. But I'm just saying, sometimes all you need is one person.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I know have never had that one person just look at them and go, you can do it.
Yeah.
What do you need? You can do it.
Yeah.
And so, I've got a friend who he was like, I want to do this. And I said, how serious are you? And he said, I quit my job. I'm that serious. And I said, great. So I'm going to hire you and you're going to do this for me. And he was like, what? And now he owns a multi-million-dollar production company. And he's way past me.
Yeah.
But he points back and says, you looked at somebody who no one should have taken a chance on. And you looked at him and you said, I'll give you a shot. And I just think that that's what people need. So I am happy to play that role. If you're willing to put the work in, if you're willing to hustle, that's the number one thing in this business. If you're willing to hustle, then I'll advocate for you. I'll be the one that gives you that shot, gives you that chance when I can.
Yeah.
To go, okay, go do it. Go take the opportunity.
Thank you, man. Thank you for.
Not you. I'm not saying I'm gonna do that for you.
Oh, okay. Then no, thank you.
That's a general.
No, thank you. This has been a great conversation. What are you originally from LA?
No, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis.
I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, the home of the blues, Elvis Presley. I was born and raised there. We lived.
So you were Baptist.
Mm-hmm. I was independent Baptist.
What?
Yeah, they thought the Southern Baptists were going to hell.
Maybe true.
Yeah. But we were, for about age of 6 to 10, we lived in Texas, but then we moved back to Memphis. So,
what? How do you get to Los Angeles?
In a car.
It's usually that or an airplane. I was what to boat by boat.
I went to.
I guess the train. You get on a train.
That's a good train. Yeah. That's stupid. When I was in college, I heard of a program called the Los Angeles Film Studies Center.
Oh yeah.
And so my senior year in college, I came out here to that program. And then when that was done, I just went back, graduated, and moved out here. That was 1998. So I've been here since 1998. So that's how. I've lived here in Los Angeles longer than I've lived anywhere else. We just went back home to Tennessee for my kids to visit their cousins for me to see. Both my parents are passed now, but my brother and my two sisters and their families are all out there. So we went to go see them, and I realized this was the first trip back where I realized that this isn't home anymore. Like, I've lived here way longer than I lived there, and I'm such a tourist there now. It's just not.
Things have changed so much.
Things have changed so much because even when I lived there, I was like a baby. I was a little kid. It's just not the same. And so my entire adult life, I've lived in Los Angeles, except for about 18 months we lived in Florida. But when I did the Ragamuffin film stuff, but yeah.
I was saying the same thing going home now. People were like, "Oh, well, you're from this town?" I'm like, "No, I'm from a town that existed here." No. But I rode around in the back of the car a lot.
Yeah, and to be clear, all your listeners need to know that being from Memphis makes me an expert in one thing and one thing only, and that's barbecue. So,
is there good barbecue out here?
No. There's one or two places that are okay.
Taco barbecue?
But it's but to try to explain to the people the nuanced differences. See, that's what I should do. I should start a podcast, Christians Who Eat Barbecue.
Yeah.
Because there's so many varied differences in barbecue.
Yeah.
And you really have to, it's all regional. And you really have to know what you're eating, why you're eating it. And it's fascinating. But all of that, if you lump it all together, take the best of all the best regions and compete, Memphis beats everything else.
Yeah. The difference between Christians who eat barbecue and Christians who drink whiskey is you would be an expert in barbecue, where I'm an expert in cosmopolitans.
And you would lose your liver, and I would have diabetes. I don't know.
This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Rye Whiskey. Dad's Hat is real rye whiskey made the right way. This month's featured bottle is Classic Rye. Barrel aged for at least 6 months in charred new oak quarter cask allows the genuine rye flavor to evolve quickly. As a result, this small batch whiskey is ensured of reaching the right balance of complexity and smoothness. The final product is a very smooth spirit that delivers upfront spice that rye is known for while finishing with a full, round mouthfeel. To find a distributor of this award-winning whiskey, head on over to dadshatrye.com, or if you're a Pennsylvania resident, you can have any of their delicious rye whiskeys delivered right to your door. Trust the distillery with over 200 years of American distilling tradition, Dad's Hat Rye. Please enjoy responsibly. Hey, let's move on. Just thank you for let's move on to some of the typical questions I ask my guests.
Okay.
Number one question, why I started this podcast. I'm very curious, because I'm a big fan. What do you think of Jesus?
What do I think of Jesus?
What do you think of Jesus?
Well, I met Jesus when I was 6 years old. And he's been my best friend. I'm 44 now. So I'm terrible at math, but I think that's 38 years.
Give or take a month.
So, I know that it might be odd to some of your listeners to hear me use such intimate, personal language like that, but that is what I think about him. That is what he is for me. He's very much alive and real to me, as we are here talking right now.
Until today, I was a picture on a screen. You know, we're like, touch.
That's right.
You know, it's interesting. It is interesting to have that a personal friend who you've never touched or seen. Maybe you have. I don't know.
So Zoom is a fantastic metaphor for the Christian life. You
continue.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the idea that you cannot be in the physical presence of someone and still have an intimate relationship with them. And this is what Christ is with me. I've learned from him. I've grown in my relationship. I've learned about life. I've learned about death. I've learned about when my dad died, he was there to comfort me. When my mom died, he was there to comfort me. When we lost our first child, he was there to comfort me. When my wife and I go through struggles, he's there to comfort me. He's there to celebrate the joys with me. He's there to hit me hard and rebuke me when I am being a knucklehead and doing stuff I shouldn't be doing and acting where I shouldn't be acting. When I saw The Passion of the Christ film, I cried. And I haven't seen it since. And someone asked me why. And I said, well, because it's 2 hours of my best friend being murdered. Why would I want to watch that again? I think it's an amazing film. I'm not speaking against the film. It's a fantastic film and people should watch it. But I'm just saying why I haven't gone back and watched it again. And I've tried. There's been a few times I'm like, I think I'm going to do this. And it was like, because when you're a 6-year-old little boy and your world is completely turned around with the concept that God loved you so much that he gave his life for you, it changed my world. And I would say that when I was 6 is when I met him. But it was around 10 years old when I just started talking to him on my own. I started reading the Bible on my own. No one told me to. I just started doing it on my own. I was raised in a Christian home, but it wasn't like we did family altar time, like they used to call it, and all that kind of stuff. Nothing against my parents. It's just not. I was a youngest of four. It's a busy household. Whatever. I started reading the Bible on my own. I started praying on my own. I began to build a relationship with God through His Son Jesus, and that's the reality of my relationship with Him. God speaks to me, which is another thing I think people think I'm weird about, but I do hear from God. It's not an audible voice like this. The way I describe it to people is it's a distinct impression, like a weight on your chest. It's more than just a thought that pops into your head. It's a strong sense of knowing. And I've had other things pop into my head. And so I've had other thoughts. And I've had to ask myself, what's the difference? Am I hearing from God or am I going crazy? And how I differentiate those things is a couple of ways. One is Scripture, right? So I use the Bible to differentiate between voices that I might think I'm hearing that are God versus something else. And then the other thing is I use what those voices are communicating to me. So I'll give you an example. And this is an extreme example, so, but it's the best one I got off the top of my head. Okay, so we go. I remember in college once waking up, in college you stay up late, the whole thing. So I'm waking up, who knows when I'm waking up, but I'm half asleep, stumbling into the bathroom, to do the business that you do right when you first wake up. And I finish and I walk over to the sink. And, as you go to wash your hands and you just kind of look into the mirror, and the first thought, I'm half asleep. My head comes up and the first thought that comes into my head is, man, you are a horribly ugly person. Who would ever love you? Now that wasn't someone, like the TV wasn't on. Like I didn't hear that right. My head, because I was half asleep, was so quiet that it was clear that I had heard something. Once again, not an audible voice, but that's what I heard. Now, I could go to Scripture and discern if that was God talking to me. Or I can base my knowledge on who God is and His character from the Scripture that I've read up to then to know that that was not Him. Because that's a destructive voice. And so for people who would ask, how do you differentiate? How do you know? Things like that is simple in this sense. When I hear from God, it's always for my better or for my good. Not necessarily short term, by the way. But it's not saying things that are going to cause me to hurt people or hurt myself. So if you're hearing the voice of God telling you to go blow up an abortion clinic or to go kill your neighbor or to run someone down, the argument that I would make is that's not God. It's a pretty simple argument that I make.
Yeah.
And so I think that the Bible talks about the shepherd knowing the sheep knowing the shepherd's voice. And I think that is something that I take to heart. Now, it doesn't mean that this is a normal thing. It's not like I get up every week and I have a phone call with Jesus. Okay. Yeah. I just want to be clear on that. These things just happen. Okay. Yeah. But they're not, windows aren't blowing open. I'm not having these like crazy encounters. I'm not, it's not all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just when you feel like you know someone well enough, you know, it would be like if your wife were to ask you, like if you were going to order food and you were going to order food for your wife at this particular restaurant. You know, you've been with your wife long enough to know pretty good. I'm going to order this for her because I can't reach her. And she's probably going to be okay with it. She might not be. She might be like, but I wanted a salad, you know?
Yeah.
But you know, it's...
Wives never do that.
Well, no, exactly. Never. But the point being is that you have an idea. Why? Because you have a relationship with her.
Yeah.
So you have a really good idea of what she's going to want to say to you.
Yeah.
If you can't talk to her right away. That's how I feel like it is with God.
Awesome.
Is that when it comes to me in such a way that it's like, okay, I have a pretty good idea that this is something that he's going to want for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I had a couple more questions.
Yeah. Was that a too long of an answer, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
But we loved it.
Yeah, I'll be short. So.
So in the movie version, well, that's the Lord of the Rings version.
Peter Jackson.
Peter Jackson.
You'll cut this one.
He's a best friend. But...
Yeah, both cut.
What is I typically ask this question, you know, what's the pros and cons of your religion, which is very similar to mine, probably the same. But I'm curious, like from a guy in Hollywood and running this class and seeing hanging out with executives, hanging out with 20-year-olds and 40-year-olds that are working their way.
You're describing such a creepy person. When you hear it come out of your mouth, I sound like a creeper, but that's okay.
It may be true. Evaluate that. Discern that, Jimmy.
What's God saying?
Is God saying that?
Is God saying creeper? That's awesome.
He's like, no, I love you, but you're...
I love you, but you're being a little creepy right now.
To be asked, like, what are the pros and cons of, our faith, our religion? But I'm curious for your perspective in Hollywood, working with the Christians in Hollywood. What are the pros and cons of Christians in Hollywood? Or,
I mean, gosh, that's an interesting question. Pros and cons. I would say the cons are it's really hard to be a Christian in this culture. But that's also a pro. In the sense that you're so different in this culture as a Christian that it's like everyone knows it. So it's like you're clearly different. So I'm almost going to treat you even slightly differently because you're different, and that treatment is probably not going to be, I'm going to, beat you up and throw things at you and call you names. I mean, look, Hollywood is open to faith. It's open to faith. I think the argument you could make is that Hollywood is when I say Hollywood, I'm talking about the industry.
Yeah.
Not the zip code. Hollywood is open to faith. The negative, the con to that is Hollywood is open to everything else too. So it's actually a pretty competitive marketplace. And the truth is if you're an a-hole and the Scientologist is not, they're probably going to think Scientology is better. Like if you're a Mormon and you're a really great person and the Christian is a mean jerk, they're probably going to think Mormonism's better. If that Buddhist is the one that that's the house that everyone likes to go to because it feels like such a safe place to go to and so peaceful and accepting and wonderful, then they might think that Buddhism is better. The truth is it's a competitive marketplace. In the realm of ideas. So, the argument should be that being a follower of Christ makes you a better person. That's what the argument should be. right? Unfortunately, I personally know too many Christians that just isn't true. Some of the worst people I know are Christians. And I've been one for 38 years.
Yeah.
So I know better than most how terrible Christians are. That's a problem. So that's a con. The con is never Jesus. The con is always his followers. So we are broken people and we make mistakes. And it's really hard. It's really hard to be a follower of Jesus. Don't think otherwise. So, I don't know if there's any pros. No, just kidding. I would just say to you that the pro is I cannot imagine going through this life without Christ. I can't imagine having to go through the hustle that we all have to go through out here, the hard work, that competition of ideas, the strain that it is on relationships, on marriages, on families, on business relationships, the long hours, the creative angst, the struggle, the dark nights of the soul that artists go through, all that stuff. I can't imagine what it would be like to go through all of that without Christ. That's the pro. The pro is
get a best friend.
To get a best friend, and that you don't measure your worth based on what you do. Right? I have somebody who does not measure my worth in what I do. I could do nothing today, and frankly, having this conversation with you, I pretty much haven't. I'm just kidding. But no, you could just have a completely wasted day.
Yeah.
It speaks nothing to your value, to your worth as a human being. Nothing. Our culture says differently. And that's why Jesus was always countercultural, is he was always the opposite of that. And so the con is that we are broken human beings who are always going to make mistakes, and we're going to ruin things. We are always going to ruin things. You can't have anything nice in the church. It's like having kids and dogs and pets. That's what it's like being in the church.
Yeah.
You can't have anything nice. Dogs are going to jump up on the couch and ruin it with the mud, and the kids are going to get chocolate all over things, and all that kind of stuff. Or maybe that's Kevin getting chocolate and stuff. Yeah, you'll be there licking it. So you can't have anything nice in the church, right? And you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
Okay? You just have to accept that we're broken people trying to figure this stuff out. And it is not my job, nor is it my responsibility. I don't want it. I don't judge you. I don't know where you came from. I don't know what kind of morning you had. I'm not going to judge you on that. It's not my job. Okay? My job is to love you. And sometimes love means for me to say, hey, get your act together. Don't do that. That's a part of love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's not judging. Okay? If you choose to not get your act together, I'm still going to love you. That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Christians have been identified in this culture for years about what we're against. And I think that the difference we're going to make in the culture is when we begin to be identified by what we're for. And what we should be for is how Christ has compelled us and called us to love one another, regardless of what we've done. Because in the end, we're all pretty terrible people. I'm sure you've got some listeners who probably think they're the bee's knees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And God bless them. Maybe they are. They're definitely better than me, because I'm a pretty rotten person.
Yeah.
But oh man, am I grateful because of that. Someone said to me once, they said, it wasn't me. They said, when Nietzsche said, I think it was Nietzsche, that religion is a crutch. And they said, yeah. You know why? Because I can't walk. So if you can walk on your own, I wish you all the best, right? My worldview says, yeah, we need help.
Yeah.
And in the end, I would say my hope and prayer is that as people of faith, we choose to, when in doubt, love.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for that, man. Insight. It's interesting.
Do I get paid for this?
You're gonna get
a commission?
Beautiful.
Do I get a mug? How much is this mug on eBay? How much do I get for this mug on eBay?
They're rare right now. There's going to be a whole slew of them sent to people in Los Angeles, including you if you play a card trick. Last question. You touched on
last
a little
question. Jeez, how many?
Well, you're answering these. We got these mammoth, wonderful worldview questions. You're solving the problems of the world here, Jimmy. Typically, I ask this question for out here for our YouTube visitors, but we've been going on for a little while now. So come over to patreon.com, patreon.com/Funny&Amen, FUNNYANDAMEN, to get some exclusive content, get some swag over there. You can head over to our website, funny&amen.com, and just go to the store and get your mug, get your t-shirt.
You get whiskey?
Not yet. We're working on that.
Oh, nice.
We're working on that. And the question I'm going to ask Jimmy for patrons only is
patrons on Patreon.
Patrons on Patreon.
Patreons on Patreon or patrons on Patreon?
You caught that. Patrons on Patreon.
Got it. So this is exclusive to you, Patreon patrons.
Good job. Better than me. Thank you for showing me up. You get the job. It's gonna be over. You want the hosting.
Is that what Patreon means? Is it like just a fancy way of saying patron? What does Patreon mean?
It's a website.
I know it's a website, but what is the word Patreon? Did they make it up the word, or did it exist?
They made up the word.
Well, why didn't they just say patron.com?
Because they wouldn't own it. Then it's like their own word, like YouTube, like Kickstarter, Kickstarter's kind of. Anyway, I'm trying to wrap up, and you just keep going. So we're gonna ask Jimmy if he's had any other paranormal experiences besides hearing from God. Thank you so much, man. It's good to see you.
I love you, bud. God bless you.
Yeah,
and I think that you are a sweetheart guy, and I think that you are someone that I think people should know. And I think if people know you, then maybe they'll get to know God. So.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, patrons. Thank you, Jimmy.
Wait, are you going to ask me the question?
Yeah. I'm wrapping up.
Oh, okay. We're wrapping up, and then we're going to go. I'm so confused.
They have to go over and become a patron.
So listen, if you want to hear, I do have a story. So sign up at patreon.com and become a patron at, I don't know why it's Funny and Amen. Why can't it just be Christians who smoke whiskey? I don't understand. I'm so confused by all these names.
You know why? Because Funny and Amen can be abbreviated. F and Amen. And then that's,
so clever.
Yeah.
So clever.
Don't get anything.
I'm surprised. Genuinely, I'm surprised. How clever.
Awesome. Alright, cool. See you guys later.